I'm Todd White, managing partner of Rulon & White Governance Strategy. It's a government affairs lobby firm. You're going to see two insignias. Also, I'm the founder of the American Blockchain Pack. So I don't want to confuse you. I have one leg in my firm. I have my other leg in the American Blockchain Pack. And by virtue of that, 80 hours a week, I know many of you work those hours as well. So I don't want that to confuse you. So just to begin, as you can see, I'm going to test your subliminal skills at this later hour, and those beaming in that are at different times. You can see Congress is under construction, right? And hopefully the yellow in my name, hopefully, is a little bit of ray of thought and light with regard to what I'm going to share today. And if you zoom out on that under the construction and some of the points or issues that I'm going to raise, I think they're going to surprise you a little bit as we talk about the regulatory framework in what is going on currently in Congress. You hear it in the airwaves, you read it on CoinDesk, you hear all these things. But I want to give you some facts. Being a lobbyist in this space since 2014 and working every blockchain bill going into this year. So I want to give you a few facts, and they may concern you. So let's begin. The title, Their Hazards, okay? I'm going to play this video, and I think your takeaway is going to be very interesting. You know this gentleman right here, and hopefully the wording matches up with the video because the internet is a little slow in here, so I'm going to let it run.
7%, even if you buy the government's numbers. So when you have a negative 6% real yield, that is extremely bullish for an asset like gold. But it has, as far as Bitcoin is concerned, since it has absolutely no intrinsic value, the only value Bitcoin has is that people think the price is low. No, it doesn't.
Decentralization of it. Yes, you have the immutable ledger. All of those are brand new technologies that the internet has never seen before. The internet 3.0 as well as DeFi has been promoted on the
Let's not talk over each other.
what intrinsic value industry.
All right. You don't
Intrinsic value is the value that an object has without anything added
people
to
down
it.
a primrose path of financial ruin. Look, why don't you learn something about investment and economics before you come on a program like that?
All right, Peter, let's not be insulting here. And unfortunately, we are at a time with this conversation. I appreciate all three of you having this discussion. Peter Chip of Euro Pacific Capital and Boom Bust co-hosts Ben Swan and Christy I. Thank you all for joining us in this.
Not a happy face. Well, I present this because this is the dialogue that is interplaying within your federal agencies, outside of the Government Blockchain Association and those that are participating. There are amid concern. And suffice it to say, there's also a lot of issues that I'm going to talk about and why this is a concern. So, I'm not going to be your first-year college professor, but I'm going to give you a little refresher course on the United States Code. This is an annotated version, all right? So, in terms of the U.S. Code, essentially, when you are decreeing code, the United States Congress has sole authority in putting in place the law, which regard to, or better stated, entire sections of the law, and can change specific words in that section. Moreover, it can be changed, it can be added to, it can be redacted by legislation. So with regard to the cryptocurrency space, this is a little concerning because the challenge is that rules of law are going to govern this issue in what money is. Even if you go to the United States Constitution with regard to the Section 8 of the United States Constitution, only the government can mint money, right? It's a little bit more clear than that, but for the sake of time, I have to get right to it. So what we have here in this issue, and this is the issue that the Committee on Financial Services Committee is having an issue with, is code. And how do we apply digital assets, and to the lesser extent, blockchain, to this new format? Because it's not what you can just put in to the monetary system. It's not that even. And by virtue of that, I've kind of touched on 31 USC 5331. And it talks about specifically extrapolating that out from the US code, relating to coins received, non-financial trade, and business. And so that is the sticking point of Treasury. This is the sticking point of the Federal Reserve Bank, and that goes back and forth. We have a problem here. And so this is why in the Investment Infrastructure Jobs Act, the members of Congress in the Committee on Financial Services were so quick to tax cryptocurrencies to fund that $1.6 trillion bill. And there's some issues that I'll point out too. And if this was a galvanized organization, there would have been a quick lawsuit in terms of the Administration Procedural Act, because anything with regard, and that's Title 5, Section 553, subsection 3, subsection 5. And what that in essence does is you have to, before you can put anything in an act or a bill, it has to be heard before Congress. There has to be testimony, and also there too, your regulatory agencies. So this presents a quagmire that was totally missed in the insertion of this $29 billion tax funding of this bill. Very, very troubling. So with this, what I also want to say is, if you really put this into perspective, this was one of the greatest tax levying feat since Caesar Augustus in 27 BC. It really was. And what that quote was, essentially, was to, he will tax the world. It's also a biblical quote as well. I think of Luke 5, if I'm not mistaken. So I want you to be cognizant of this and many other pieces of code that isn't talked about. This is the other issue, obviously on the broker code, stemming to the Investment Infrastructure Jobs Act. There's many tenets of this issue. This is an old code, obviously going back to 1986. So we're trying to insert new money, a new monetary layer on an old bedrock framework. And that is going to pose an issue. And what that issue is, I think you already know. There's issues as it pertains to privacy with the broker exchange and expanding the definition of broker. You've probably, on your Coinbase account, you're probably seeing that, right? They're collecting data to file on you. And that should also be challenged. But the foregoing issue is, ladies and gentlemen, the industry, the blockchain crypto industry, is not galvanized to do anything to move this off of front and center. You only have, truthfully, in the Committee on Financial Services, 2 or 3 members, predominantly on that blockchain caucus, that would try to push bills forward. And you have to understand, after the procedure in the House or the Senate is that you have to sponsor a bill, you do a mock-up, it has to be sponsored, it has to be then voted on, and then after it's voted on, it goes to the wider Committee on Financial Services. So how are you going to get these votes to overhaul the blockchain policy that you see out of certain member offices or members in general? It's just not going to happen as evenly as one may suppose. So there's a remedy for that, and as I alluded to in my earlier conversation, we have one leg in Rulon and White governance strategies, and then there's the American Blockchain Pact, to which I founded back in April of 2021. And the fundaments of that was these burgeoning issues. And the foregoing problem is that there is not a galvanization of the industry. And that is a major, major problem. And what the problems are is if you have one group that is, talking about one issue, you have another camp talking about another issue, you kind of make it really easy for regulators, and I'm not saying members, I want to take a non-polemic approach to legislators because it has to be a conversation. It can't be an argumentative battle. It just can't. But there are tactics which can be done, which is what the American Blockchain Pact is going to be doing. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. There is a board. On that board is Dr. Sternetta, Scott Sternetta, Board of Advisors. There is Kevin Marabi, who is the founder of Tezos DeFi. There is Ariel Jalid, who is an assistant professor from UCLA. And then there's Mike Longai, who is the managing partner of, it's a fund. He's a venture capitalist. He was a seed investor in Coinbase. It's A through Z. I could go on and on. But also, he, within his fund is Quant, which is going to be working with many governments around the world. And each of these men, I might add, are committed to coming to Washington and having planned meetings with regulators, more specifically congressmen. So we have the builders and the architects in conjunction with members of Congress so that we can have these conversations and meet in the middle. And that is the overarching goal. But I want to expand a few more minutes on what the tenets of the American Blockchain Pact are. There's first and foremost, it was formed in 2020, April 23rd, 2021, but we launched 11/11/21, and it's on an operational platform to galvanize the entire industry. And what I have seen, and I was quoted in the Wall Street Journal several months back, is the elegant question was, why isn't the industry galvanizing on one platform? Well, there's a lot of misunderstanding from the standpoint of crypto startups and firms. I think I'm not being disingenuous, but many of them thought that with billions of dollars you can make anything happen. And I think that I think it's going to be an epiphany when certain regulation starts moving against one, then there will be a clarion call. But you can't, in this space here in Washington, you cannot be reactive. You cannot. You have to be responsive. And that's another reason why I formed the American Blockchain Pact. So that can happen. Open platform for all to rest upon. I kind of talked about the first action step, which is to help contribute to those incumbent members of Congress and identify, will they vote for us for this space or not? And so we have computational data points whereby we want to focus on understanding what that member will do and what they will not do, because I'll tell you why that's important. Before I do, here's the second step. The other issue is supporting primaries, incumbent members of prospective, I think I twirl those around, but let me just go to that slide. We want to support those prospective members of Congress who have the skill sets, the grassroots campaign that support blockchain and crypto. And that's going to be extremely important. And we have to support those members of Congress, those prospective members of Congress. Let me put it that way. Our third principle I want to point out is in 2005, 2006, we want the American Blockchain Pact to morph into a potential political technocratic party. I know people don't have that vision, but you have to have that vision. And interesting enough, I think I pointed it out in a 2021 Gallup poll in February, 63% of those that were surveyed stated they would support a third party. And you have to factor in the Generation Y, the Generation X, the millennials. The issues of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they don't relate to those value sets or those principles that each hold on to. They're looking for another party. They want technology to be embedded into that next party. So the American Blockchain Pact, trustfully, will be the catalyst for that happening. I'm digressing a little bit with regard to the American Political Action, or the American Blockchain Political Action Committee, Flywheel. I want to give you a perspective of how this should work. And everyone here should understand why it's really important to have one central platform, okay? Node operators, I have it twice, okay? I like node operators, maybe, I don't know. Blockchain associations, legal firms, artificial intelligence, I think you can read well as I can, software developers. All of these different spokes embracing the American Blockchain Pact should be donating to one central place so that you can run a unified agenda and not have 3 or 4. Because what happens here in DC is if you have to recalibrate and stop what you're doing, you've lost, okay? That's bottom line, and it's the tail wagging the dog then. And we don't want it to be reactive, we want it to be proactive. Let me explain something to you all that you may not know. There is a banking lobby. I'm a lobbyist, and in essence, what has happened here is that the contributions in the banking space, these are the contributions that have been made to the members of Committee on Financial Services. Okay, it's an election year. Now, if they're getting money from the banking lobby, do you really think they're going to vote for crypto? Look at the crypto contributions in 2021. And that came at the end of the year, mind you. And here's the other problem. You know, I wanted to also introduce Adele Nazarian, our CEO, who's here. In the one conversation that we have on our billion of Zoom calls, we talked to these millennials and they said, you know what? I donated, $2,800 to my congressman. And the congressman that they donated it to sits on like the Social Welfare Committee, okay? It's misdirected, they don't understand. It has to go to selective people. And that hasn't really matriculated in many who don't have a background on governance, and that is an issue, okay? So I just want you to see the disparity, and this is why regulation can possibly roll back. I want to introduce something very novel. In order to move this ethos forward, there has to be a government-private partnership industry corporation, okay, on laying what should happen, how it should happen, and by virtue of that, what you see is the DC federal courts for some of the legal issues that come up, 10 members of the bicameral Congress. Then there's the White House. The White House just issued, they're going to rule something on cryptocurrencies. You think the White House is really talking to some of the senior members of Congress? No. You think they're talking to the Department of Commerce? The Congress is talking to the Department of Commerce? No. Treasury? No. Do you think the Security Exchange Commission is talking to any of these other agencies with the exception to the Congress? No, not really. Do you think that on the defense side, it's very important because digital assets and crypto are being, I'm a defense lobbyist as well, that's besides the crypto and blockchain. DARPA is doing a lot of research on digital assets and how they can be applicable. Also the Federal Reserve Bank, you know, with the digital dollar. And you've probably heard the going back and forth, and one of the more prominent bill sponsors is pushing back on the Federal Reserve Bank, moving forward on the digital dollar. So there's all this interfacing, but if we can put private and government together, and then we put the crypto builders and architects, the Charles Hoskinsons, and maybe 9 or 10 others that are comfortable in working with regulators. Then we have organizations. That could be the multiple organizations out here. We have the Council of State Governments. There's representation there. Then we have academics, right? We have to bring in, you know, that aspect of it. Then what you have beneath that is you need a government affairs firm to be able to articulate and speak the vernacular to help builders and architects speak the language of regulators. And a quick example of that, Brian Brooks, right? You all saw him testify on December 8th, which I was thrilled to be on the background of that meeting. And what I can say to you is the reason why he's so fluent and he ran a master class in his testimony is because he knows both sides, all right? Let me give you I don't know if you remember David Marcus of Libra, who it was probably, will go down in history in every MBA class in the world, and how not to give a testimony. So you need someone that speaks the vernacular of a regulator, and that's really, really important. Yeah, that's my firm. So, so with that stated, that's how you create a balanced ecosystem. And then there's the public relations as well. Almost done here. What we talked about, in summary. Arthur Schopenhauer is one of my favorite philosophers. Lived by him since I was 14. And this is what he said about the stages of truth. The truth is ridiculed. It's violently opposed. Then it becomes self-evident. So where are we? We're between the truth is ridiculed with respect to regulatory adoption and it being violently opposed. So with that, thank you. Are there any questions?
Eugene Maros of Everscale Networks. One question.
Yes.
How do we sign up for that partnership?
Hey, we're open sourced. We have many ways.
How's it going? Great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I've got a question.
Yes.
It's not an attack. It's a legitimate question.
Please.
Right? So, you used the word centralization a few times.
Did I say centralization?
Yes.
Thank you. I stand corrected. Decentralization.
Decentralization.
For the record, Chatham House rules.
Okay.
Decentralization. Thank you.
Awesome. So,
thank you for the edit.
No worries. So that was really my my main question, right? So you're at
Yes,
a
thank you.
you're at blockchain conference. You're at a bunch of people who believe in decentralization.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about this organization being a nexus point of a lot of these different players in the industry, right? So
That is
walk me
correct.
through the balance there between a centralized group that is that it's organizing and facilitating operations between these groups, while still avoiding that angle of centralization.
Yeah, let me clarify that for you, please. I didn't mean when you hear, obviously, everything that we're doing here is predominantly decentralized. But what I'm saying is, simply put, with regard to a central theme, maybe it was a word choice that I might have slandered a little bit or screwed up. What I'm saying is we have to galvanize, okay? Where there has to be one mind, okay, with regard to leading policy and driving things, lawsuits. Well, I want to be careful on that, but not only that, airing commercials, changing the thought, right, of our universe here, and which is what we're doing now. So that's what I was making light of, and not anything from the standpoint of cryptocurrencies being centralized or blockchain, because that's improbable. I don't think any one of us would be here if that was the central theme of this talk.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
No, thank you for the answer.
Sure.
You got a question?
Good afternoon. Eric Guthrie, GBA and Cogent Law Group. I was wondering if you can give us an update on HR 3543, the Blockchain Technology Coordination Act that was sponsored by Darren Soto. Do you know what's going on with that right now? Did it go through the Senate? Is it stalled somewhere? Do you have any updates on that act?
The last time I captured what was going on in working with a few staffers, it's still in committee.
Yes, I figured.
Yeah, there's been no movement. Yeah. And that's a perfect question, because this is the challenge that we're having. It has to be pushed through. It has to be supported. And members work like this, having worked for Chairman Conyers for 3.5 years in judiciary. Members have to support members. It's I support your bill, if you support mine. It's called log rolling in the congressional vernacular of things. And so by virtue of that, there has to be support for crypto. It's minimal, it's a basal level of support at this instant. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Apologies. Just one more question.
Yes.
So lots of different cryptocurrencies face different challenges.
Correct.
Right? And so I'm curious, right? What's your thought process on how to balance those various challenges of, let's say, a Tezos regulatory challenge versus a Cardano regulatory challenge? How are you going to balance that through your organization?
Absolutely. The way that would happen, and as I shared with you, we have Kevin, who is going to actually trustfully be testifying in the future on DeFi, because we know the DeFi issue is going to be the next Ali versus Frazier. And by the way, anecdotally, if you remember when Coinbase got punched by, it was a soft blow by the SEC, it was actually the banking lobby filing a whistleblower on interest rate platform that they were bringing forward. So there's a lot that we can do on that. And in conjunction with that, on the IOHK side of that, there are going to be certain issues that we would be able to address as well. And as I stated before, having the pleasure of having to speak with some of these regulators and the SEC, I see them in the Harvard Club. So I get a chance to plant things that maybe aren't planted. So the point of the matter is there's ways to do that. We have scheduled planned meetings within off-site to have these conversations and bring in the builders and the architects to try to get a semblance of understanding.
That's great. Thank you. Great presentation.
You bet. Thanks. I talk too fast. I'm on a clock watch. Sorry.
Hi, Les Adkins, Digital Gift. I have one question for you. And you mentioned a third party, a democratic party, which would be awesome. how would, and I understand the population, millennials and the Gen Zs
Yes.
outnumber the rest of the populations, but with the force of what they've tried, what both the Democrats and Republicans have tried to do on going against the third party, how do you see in the future that playing out and them overcoming that pushback?
Oh, absolutely. Let me spell it out for you. This is a government for the people and by the people. So as the millennials, the Generation X, and the Generation Y continue to rise, and you already see the impact that they have on culture at this instant, in combination with Web3 and all of the nuances of technology. It's undisputed. It's going to happen. And it's just a matter of within the next I say, there's those that disagree with me, it's fine. I say in the next three or 4 years, I think you're going to see that rise. Sure.
Hello, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. My name's Isabella Edmonds. I work for a company called GeoComply and have followed really closely all the crypto regulations and stuff that's happening, the hearing in December, which was enlightening. But I'm very curious to know what you think about what's going to happen in this next year, because it seemed like during that committee session, for example, a lot of the congressmen, a lot of the members were picking on very small things and kind of mulling them
Yes.
over and over. It seemed like there was two sides
Yes.
that were very much opposing. And like, is it likely that we'll see any movement? I know the Senator in Wyoming is kind of like drafting bills and stuff, but
Oh,
what do you think
absolutely.
is going to be happening? What can we expect? What should we be ready for?
Yes.
Just any insight on that?
Many things. I know we're down on time. I want to introduce my coaxial speaker partner, Jim Moran, Chairman Jim Moran, as I call him. But let me answer your question. I just want to make sure we're staying on time here, which we're over, actually. We're going to see a lot of SEC movement with the individual that was brought in by Gensler. You're going to see more battles with regard to crypto, more regressive, and you're going to see guys like me trying to, knock out language, which I've been doing for like the last 6 or 7 years. Well, actually 4 or 5 now. And you're also going to essentially see an issue with, this is a political year. So you're going to see a right-leaning cryptocurrency a group of candidates, because what's happened is within the Investment Infrastructure Jobs Act, the Democrats have kind of stalwarted, or they've kind of messed themselves up with the taxation issue. That's what you're going to see, is a rise in Republican candidates with crypto messaging. Thank you. Yeah. With that, I'd like to introduce the man of the hour, Chairman Jim Moran.